everybody. Air fryers are getting pretty popular. They're getting relatively inexpensive. You can find them everywhere. You can find recipes, especially on Pinterest and all that good stuff. And I've been shopping around looking at getting one. I was on Amazon. I'm looking at a couple, looking at some real high-end ones, some low-end ones, stuff in the middle. And I'd actually put one in my wish list just to come back and look at it a little more in depth a couple days later. Well, the next day I get up and there's an email from a company, from this company here, from Omorc? I guess that's the correct name. Not 100% sure, but it's one that I had in my wish list. They were asking if I would do a demo of their air fryer. Well, since I was thinking about buying one anyway, I said sure. So anyway, what I'm going to be cooking today is I'm going to be doing an air fryer salsa. It's essentially a roasted salsa recipe. Pretty basic. It's got tomatoes, and I'm using Roma tomatoes because the good garden tomatoes are not in season. If we were in the late spring, early summer when tomatoes are at their peak, I would use regular like beefsteak tomatoes from the farmer's market. But since winter has just started and tomatoes are not at peak, I'm using Romas because they're kind of consistent year round. Of course, these are Romas from Mexico. Anyway, I got some tomatoes, I got some garlic. We're going to leave the garlic in the husk because it helps keep the garlic from burning. Got a little small onion, got a jalapeno, and then a little while later we're going to season it with some salt and we're going to put some cilantro in there.
James, it's called soapweed.
No, it's cilantro, not soapweed. Soapweed? I got no idea where you get this soapweed thing. He gets a little carried away with this soapweed thing. Man, I think maybe I could get rid of it by just hanging some cilantro over the door. Would that work? Would you go away? Anyway, let's get started. So let's get started cooking our salsa. Got a 6-quart, I guess, container. I guess you call it our cooking pan. And am I experimenting with it? I'm finding that stuff cooked further back in there browns up and cooks a little faster. Now I'm going to put my tomatoes in here. I'm going to use 6 tomatoes today, 6 Romas today. Now, depending on the size of your Romas, you may want to use 5, or if you're using other ones, you know, the other types of tomatoes, you may want to use a few more. I've got 1 big jalapeno. I don't know why they're so big in the markets right now. I'm going to take my onion, put it in there. Now, I'm just using 3 cloves of garlic today. You could roast a whole head of garlic, and then you'd have roasted garlic, but if you roast it as 1 head, the outside stuff gets done faster, which is not surprising. So anyway, with the Romas, I'm making sure I got a little room around them. Kind of want a little room around everything in here, as much as you can. Not going to be perfect. All right, put that in there. Now, I'm going to push the manual button. Calls up a deal. You could just push start and it would start 360, but I want to change the time a little bit. I want to go to push the temperature button just at the 400 degrees F. I'm going to change my time to 12 minutes. And then we'll be back in about 12 minutes so that we can flip everything over. Our timer is just about done, but I want to show you a little something. If you just want to check your food, you pull it out, the display goes blank, and then when you put it back in, it just goes right back to where you were and it continues. The timer holds, all that good stuff. So now we're just about done. This thing's the timer's about to go off. I was kind of hoping it would go off right on cue, but of course it didn't do it. Now, a lot of recipes and stuff, whenever I'm reading recipes for air fryers, they talk about preheating. I don't bother with that. On the first cycle, I just add a minute or 2. And I figured that's my preheat time. Anyway, let's just go ahead and cancel this and pull this out because I wanted you guys to see this. See, everything's starting to cook a little bit. I'm kind of wanting to turn some stuff over. Check my garlic. Yeah. So basically, my garlic, I'm going to go ahead and pull my garlic out because I don't want it to burn. Because burnt garlic is kind of nasty. See my little pepper? That's starting to cook. My tomatoes are doing pretty good. Onions doing good. kind of roll my onion around in a different spot. My jalapeno, same thing there. I'm just going to let the tomatoes go just like what they are. And then we're going to put this back in. And then we're going to go back through the same procedure. We're pushing M, temperature. I'm taking it up to 400. I'm going to set my timer for 10. There we go. Push. And we're back to cooking. All right, so our timer's counted down to 0. I want to talk about a couple things real quick. You may not necessarily want to move this thing after it starts cooking. You start to grab it underneath. There's some hot spots there. This spot here gets a little warm. I mean, not gonna burn you. You've got a vent on the back that's blowing out. So if you're cooking something greasy, you might want to be aware of that in case it's blowing grease on your wall or something. So anyway, I'm gonna pull this out. Our salsa looks done to me. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and get everything else ready, and then I'll be back with you and we'll put this in the food processor. Got our jalapeno here, and we're going to take, and this skin that's kind of down there, we're going to pull some of that off. Now, how much jalapeno to use and everything is really a personal decision on your part. If you do, I like leaving some seeds. I don't leave all the seeds. The seeds and the membranes around the seeds are spicy, so if you want to reduce the spiciness, don't include those. If you want lots of spice, throw them in there. Anyway, we're just going to take off the pieces of skin that'll come off real easy. Like that. Might be able to get some off here. There we go. Not worried about getting it all off. Just makes it a little neater presentation. And then we're going to just roughly chop this. We're getting a lot of that meat off of there without getting a lot of seeds. There we go. And there's our jalapeno. That's what we're going to put into the food processor. All right, so I've already peeled the garlic. That's my 3 cloves of garlic that were roasted up. I got my tomatoes. I basically pulled off the skins of the and cut out the little stem part or the core. Anyway, they're in here. They're ready to go. Now the onion, it's ready. We're going to get this peel off of it, skin. Want to get that off. And then we're probably not going to use all of it, but we do want to use the outside layers of the onion because they're a little better cooked. We want that paper part off. We don't want to use that. And this onion's still pretty hot. Those peppers were hot also. Tomatoes were crazy hot. That's why I didn't show them on camera. We're going to pull that off. Pull this off. Now this ought to give us enough onion for what we need. I'm just going to roughly chop this because it's all going into the food processor. So we don't want it to be mush. Just give that a rough chop. What's that? And that's what, anyway, I'll get a measure out. That looks about like half a cup of onion. Anyway, that's what I'm going to call it. Now the reason, you can use a blender to do this, but I like using a food processor because a blender whips so much air into it and turns the tomatoes kind of pink. And I prefer red salsa over pink salsa. Not that there's a problem with it. It'll still taste basically the same. I'm going to put our onions in there, our garlic. We're going to put our jalapenos in there. We're going to put our cilantro in. And we're going to put our tomatoes in with the juice. And we cannot forget salt. I'm using a 1/4 cup. I think that's a good starting point for the recipe. You might want a little more, but that's really going to be a personal decision. I like to pulse this a couple of times. And then I can see tomatoes or onions, hunks of onion starting to get up there, so we'll scrape that down a little bit. And we'll hit this again. And then that looks pretty good right there. I'm sure some of you have questions about how either easy or difficult it is to clean this thing. I mean, we've got some tomato cooked on there, or stuck on there a little bit. So what you do, you take this plastic cover, push the button, the basket lifts out, and then you can either throw this in the dishwasher or you can clean it up in the sink. So anyway, we've got some stuff there as well. So let's get to cleaning. My dishwasher's already full of other stuff. Vader didn't clean his dishes last night, you know. I don't know what's up with that guy. Anyway, see, you've got tomato skin. Just gonna take our little smiley face, kind of scrub this a little bit. It comes off pretty easy. And really it's good soak. You just let it soak for a couple minutes and then the stuff really comes off easy. And that's clean. Now, get this part. And that just comes, basically everything comes right off. Anyway, it's cleaned up. Okay, so in closing, just a couple of things I want to mention. I'm really happy that I have the air fryer. I like that you don't have to use a lot of oil to cook a lot of things. Frozen French fries. I threw some frozen French fries in there with no oil or anything in it the other night. Cooked them for 10 minutes, stirred them around, put a little salt on them, 10 more minutes. They were awesome. They were actually better than if I had fried them in oil. It doesn't make a big mess like whenever you're frying with oil, so I'm glad I got it. But if you're interested in learning more about air fryers in general, my friend Booger over at Airfryer Recipes with Booger 500 US has an awesome channel. She's been doing air frying for a long time. When it comes to air frying, she knows what she's doing. Anyway, I'm going to put a link to her channel down below. Hopefully you check her out. And if you like this recipe, I have a printable version with all the nutrient ingredients and everything over on my blog at jamesstrange.com. Hopefully you check that out and maybe you hop over there and find something else you like. Anyway, appreciate you stopping by today. Thank you.